ChromeOS Flex, the version of ChromeOS that can run on all sorts of old and new laptops, is a wildly useful, incredibly flexible OS that serves all sorts of purposes, from reviving old hardware to saving huge companies from massive ransomware attacks. And though we talked about it quite a bit when it first arrived, there's a good chance that you've never really had a look at just how malleable this operating system can be. So today, we're going to show you. Now, before we get into all the devices on the table, I want to quickly cover what ChromeOS Flex is and why it's so valuable. A few years back, when Google acquired Neverware, we weren't sure what would come of that purchase. A few years later, ChromeOS Flex was introduced, and we had our answer. It's an OS just like what we have on Chromebooks, but it's easily installable on a massive array of old and new laptops, PCs, and MacBooks. It's updated right alongside with ChromeOS like we have on Chromebooks, and it comes with all the same features and abilities too, well, minus the Android apps. Simply put, ChromeOS Flex is the same flexible, agile, cloud-based OS we love on Chromebooks, but available to install on lots of legacy hardware. And this all comes with some big benefits for educational institutions and businesses looking to streamline workflows, save some money, and increase their security. We all know ChromeOS has never had a single successful ransomware attack, and that security extends to ChromeOS Flex as well. In fact, a sizable hotel chain was actually able to update thousands of insecure, compromised devices in just 48 hours to ChromeOS Flex to quickly recover from a company-wide ransomware attack. With ChromeOS Flex running well on so many older laptops, savings and reduced e-waste are pretty huge benefits too. Not only will laptops updated to ChromeOS Flex be faster and more secure than they were, they'll also be able to stay in use far longer and stay out of the landfill while doing so. And then you have the ease of management to consider as well. ChromeOS, by its nature, is easy to manage and maintain, putting far less stress on IT crews to keep things secure, safe, updated, and running smoothly. In any setting where there are fleets of devices being used by an organization, ChromeOS, and ChromeOS Flex by extension, just makes way more sense than something like Windows. So with all that being said, we wanted to take a look at a bunch of hardware running ChromeOS Flex. It's one thing to tell you it runs well on all sorts of stuff. It's a whole different thing to show you. But before we get into that, this video is sponsored by Google ChromeOS. We partnered up with the ChromeOS Flex team and put together a collection of old, new, and slightly strange hardware that we could use to showcase just how flexible ChromeOS Flex really is. It's been a pleasure getting to work a bit more closely with them on this project, and we're grateful for the partnership to showcase how awesome ChromeOS Flex really is. If your organization is interested in learning more about getting started with ChromeOS Flex, just hit the link in the description. One last note before we take a look at all this hardware. All but one of the devices on the table are what the ChromeOS Flex team refers to as certified. And that means they've been tested to be sure things like audio, video, networking, trackpad, keyboard, USB, webcam, all that stuff works. So that you can go and reference the certified list and decide if the move to ChromeOS Flex is right for you or not. And when you do so, you'll know for sure that the devices that you have been tested to work well. However, even if they aren't on that list, you can easily test ChromeOS Flex on a bootable USB stick, so you can run your own trials beforehand. We have a video linked in the description that will take you through all of that if you're interested in trying that out for yourself. It's free, simple, so why not give it a shot, right? All right, so let's get into this hardware. Before we start though, I'm gonna clear out a space to work with. And we're going to kind of cover these in kind of chunks. So I want to start with the weird stuff, the stuff that's a little bit different, not just a standard issue laptop. And from the beginning, maybe you've been looking at this thing. This is the Justice Tech Secure Book 6. And if you can notice something, it's clear. It's all see-through. This is an institutional Chromebook, so for use in jails, prisons, that kind of thing. And so for obvious reasons, keeping it clear to make sure nothing's being snuck into any kind of organization is a big deal. But what's really cool is this is a very purpose-built device. So this is obviously made for institutional settings, and everything just works still on it. So I mean, obviously there's probably some unique stuff going on here with trackpads and the keyboard and everything, and yet everything still works. So I'm going to adjust brightness. We'll go up and down there, your mute and volume and all that kind of stuff. is working. So the keys are mapped the way they need to be. Your trackpad gestures work, so 2-finger scroll, all that kind of stuff. And again, it's a purpose-built device, and this device is meant to be secure and able to be locked down and dropped onto the dock kind of station here. And all that stuff just works, and that's the power of ChromeOS Flex. All right, so on to probably the oddest of all the stuff that we have. This is the HP Engage Go 10. Now this is a retail-specific device. Obviously, it looks like a point-of-sale system, and it's got some really unique things on it. So for one, you can flip this around, if you want to like take a signature or whatever. And again, this is all going to be dependent on what app you're running for your point-of-sale system and all that kind of stuff. But then there's this button that unlocks the tablet. You can hear it kind of click. And then it's this thing I can kind of take around and maybe take orders with or something like that. And there's even a scanner here. And you can see it, it's looking for, it's an infrared, barcode scanner. And so if you have the right software on here, you could be scanning stuff on the go. But as you can tell, it's running Chrome OS, and all your settings are here just like you would expect. The interesting part, there's no tablet mode here because ChromeOS Flex doesn't really focus on tablet mode. So when you use a device like this, you're still going to kind of get the desktop version of the OS, but it's nice and quick. I think this thing's got like a Core i5 in it or something, 11th gen. And so it's nice and quick, and it's just a weird piece of hardware that, ChromeOS Flex is not just running on, but is running certified on. So if your company had these for their point of sales, you could use ChromeOS Flex too. So let me get this thing pop back on here. You'll hear it click. It's really cool. It's a fun device. And again, how they crammed a Core i5 in there is shocking to me. But I want to move on to some more standard laptops, but ones that are, again, pretty purpose-built. So this one is the Panasonic Toughbook, and this thing feels like an absolute tank. It really does. It feels like one of those ones you could just throw in the back of a pickup and literally not worry. It's got a handle built into it up here. What other fun stuff we got going on? We got like full ability to just slide the batteries out of this thing. It's kind of compartmentalized. We'll check the stylus over here. There's a stylus hiding over here. So we'll see if that works. I'll just leave that out. Yeah, you've got all kinds of ports and all that kind of stuff, and then the whole thing just kind of clamps closed, and it's just made of metal and just rugged as all get out. Now it's thick, it's heavy, it's all that kind of stuff, but again, these are the types of devices where people are going to spend tons of money to deploy a fleet of these things because they are not cheap. And at some point, if you want to update it and Windows won't update anymore, or Windows isn't doing what you want it to do, you need another answer without having to replace all of these devices and all this hardware, and ChromeOS Flex is a great fit for that. All right, so we got this thing all fired up, and as I was kind of working through just the basic setup process here, this device is in great condition. It is an 8th gen Core i5 in here, so it's not like it's a new version of this Toughbook. Obviously is many years old, but it's in really good condition, which this is a perfect example of a device that perhaps, there was a ransomware attack, or there was some sort of issue that, they couldn't resolve quickly with Windows, and maybe this company made the move over to ChromeOS Flex in order to, keep using this expensive hardware. But I wanted to try this little stylus out. I don't know if it's USI or EMR, or I don't know what it is. It's just in here. And this is a perfect example to me of, here's this device that has all this random stuff that obviously you'd have a bunch of drivers and Windows to work, and you install ChromeOS Flex, and here we go. Let's see. Yeah, there's a screenshot, and it's actually really, really responsive. Like, that feels great. So, you even get to still use the stylus that's built into this thing, which is pretty awesome. But again, this is an example of a device that you just wouldn't want to replace this thing. If you were running a business and you had 100 of these things out in the field, they're very expensive and they're very well built and built to last for a long time. Well, when Windows is failing you, ChromeOS Flex is here to fix it. And let me show you just a couple more things on this one. So let me bring this up. Again, I'm going to say this stuff over and over again. Speakers work, keyboard shortcuts work, all that kind of stuff works. But, with different ones, I want to show you different things. So, for instance, speakers obviously would be a big deal if they didn't work. These speakers don't sound good, but you can see the speakers working just fine. And then let me bring up the camera. Because again, these are technical things that with Windows, you gotta have a bunch of drivers and all that kind of stuff to make it work. And as you can see, there's Joe in the picture there. Camera works. Actually, camera looks really good on here. So the camera works fine too. And so, you know, being able to see all these tiny things, you know, the volume rocker, the your screen brightness, your keyboard shortcuts, all those things work from device to device. It's just really cool to see. And the reason that ChromeOS Flex is just a really cool thing to talk about, because it'd be easy for this stuff to just not work. Windows requires tons of drivers to make these things work, and to see ChromeOS Flex work on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of hardware that it just has no business running on a lot of times, it's just a really, really cool thing. So on to another kind of work style device. We've got another Lenovo here. It's a Lenovo ThinkPad. And this one is a real chunker. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, this one has inside, I think it's Core i5, but it's a 3rd gen Core i5, which takes us way back to like original Chromebook Pixel days, which means terrible battery life. So we're gonna have to get this thing plugged in and started back up. But I mean, this thing's old enough, like you can see on here, that's a VGA connector. So some of you watching this don't even know what that is. But that's for, you know, like older monitors before HDMI was a thing. It's actually got an optical drive over here on it as well. Yeah, so I mean, this thing is clearly a kind of a tough, rugged, not quite as rugged as the Toughbook over there, but that kind of, you know, work style device. This is a thing that the company that had it probably spent a ton of money getting deployed out to a bunch of people. And so obviously, if you can bring this thing back from the dead, that's pretty impressive. All right, got her powered on. This one's actually got like a release hinge over here to open it up. Wow. Yep, this one is definitely old. Hopefully Joe can get from the side over there. I mean, you got letters worn off the keys. I mean, I feel like they've worn almost a hole in that trackpad. Luckily, this one actually has the nub on it. So like the Lenovo nub, and guess what? Works just fine. So you can actually use these buttons here if you want to use the nub along with that. We've talked about this before with a couple Chromebooks that had the nub, and how at first I was like, what would you use this for? But, you know, people who have to wear gloves and stuff like that out in the field, a nub's much easier to use than taking your gloves off and using a trackpad. No, whoever had this before definitely got their use out of that trackpad. Once again, you see ChromeOS Flex working here. We've tested a bunch of the shortcuts. Everything works. But what's really interesting about this particular one is that up top here, it's actually got like some custom volume rocker buttons up here. And, you know, they've made sure that those work too. So you can see my volume turning up and down and muting, which is kind of cool. I don't know, I just don't expect that kind of stuff to work. But again, seeing the nub kind of working here, and again, this is a very, very old device. The nub working, the keyboard shortcuts and the volume shortcuts up here working, pretty cool stuff. And, you know, even though this trackpad feels pretty terrible, let me get to something I can actually scroll. Let's see. Yeah, oh, it does. I'll be darned. I figured this was around before Windows would even do 2-finger scrolling, and somehow scrolling's working. I pinch zoom, probably not. No. Yeah, I'm actually kind of shocked that this trackpad even supports multi-finger gestures at all. And one last thing that's fun about this one is there's actually an optical drive over here on the side. We were going to test this, but I don't have CDs anymore, or DVDs. Oh, it won't open unless I've got this thing open. But let me just open it so you can see it. Click that. There you go. And I would think that if we had like a DVD or something with some data on it, it really wants to stay open, that it would actually work and be able to read. I don't know that for sure, but again, we don't have any of that kind of data around here. But this is a perfect example of a device that is well past its prime and well overdue for replacement. Still being a functional laptop, if this is what you had around and this is what you got to work with, ChromeOS Flex will make this thing work. So, from work-based devices, again, I said in the open, you know, a lot of this is going to come down to people who have fleets of devices out professionally and those in the education space. This is an educational aimed device, and again, it's thick. It's clearly got bumpers all around it and is built to take a beating. And what's funny is you don't see as many of these out there anymore because Chromebooks have taken over education so much. But I'm sure there are still lots of school systems that have Windows-based EDU devices kind of chilling out and sitting around. And so, of course, ChromeOS Flex works really well here too. So this device is actually, I think, a 6th gen Celeron. So still quite a few years back. We're talking 7-8 years ago. Let me pull up the diagnostics real quick. Yeah. So it's the Celeron 3855U. Not that that really matters necessarily for this, but we really tried to get a bunch of devices on a bunch of different stuff. So we've got like 11th gen, we got some 8th gen, we got some 6th gen, we got some new AMD coming up here in just a minute. We've got some small core Intel here, so the N100 in that box. So hang around to see that in action as well. But yeah, so it once again, just kind of showing off stuff like, there's the camera. Camera working just fine. And this is a device that, again, isn't that old, but we got a VGA connector on here again, alongside the HDMI. So, we're not talking about brand new or, cutting edge here, but if this is what you had in your educational facility and you didn't want to throw them away because it's in perfect working order, like the keyboard's fine, it feels really good. The trackpad's kind of small, but again, gestures work on this one as well. So let's close that. As you can see, 2-finger scrolling works just fine. Let's see, pinch to zoom. No. Yeah, you got to remember, Windows just got around to like multi-finger gestures a few years ago, and so some of their hardware in here just doesn't support like 2 or 3 finger gestures that well. So the fact that they're even getting 2-finger scrolling working is pretty cool. But again, perfect example of a device that is purpose-built. It is meant to take a beating, doesn't have the highest end processor or anything in it, but if it's in this kind of condition, it feels really terrible to throw it away or to get rid of it or feel the need to have to replace it. And with ChromeOS Flex, once again, you just don't have to. Okay, from work and weird and EDU, we're going to switch to something way more modern. So we actually went and grabbed this device over at Best Buy. It's just one of the Lenovo Yoga, the cheaper end Yoga, but with an AMD Radeon, or Ryzen 5, I'm sorry, inside. And so for right now, we want to at least have one of these where it wasn't already, certified and running ChromeOS Flex, just to kind of showcase. Again, we have linked in the description if you want to go try this and install it. We have a walkthrough that does all that stuff. I don't want to get derailed on this, but we're actually running ChromeOS Flex on the USB for this one. And I've got a mouse dongle in here from Logitech. I'll explain that in just a second. But this is a very modern device. Obviously, you can tell kind of from the sides, USB Type-C's over here and HDMI and a couple of USB ports over here, and that's it. So we're definitely not dealing with an older device on this one. But as you can see, we did not adjust our brightness, but let me make sure with Joe here. Look good there? Okay, so as you can see, our brightness controls all work just fine. Our volume controls work just fine. So this is not a certified device. This is just a device where like, let's get one and just see what happens. And so that's all working. Let's actually just check the camera. Again, these are difficult things. Oh, and I'm going to move it with the trackpad. We did figure out when booted in here for right now, the trackpad's not working. So that's why I've got the Logitech mouse, which is working just fine. Yeah, camera's working just fine. Let's grab a photo here. Touchscreen's working too. So, I mean, that's a lot of stuff to be working on a device that hasn't even been tested. Like, it's not like the ChromeOS team is like testing, ChromeOS Flex team, is testing stuff in the background and be like, we're just not going to tell anybody. There's a bajillion laptops out there, and this is proof positive that you don't know. Like, if you have this device and for some reason Windows just isn't cutting it anymore, it's not working out, you're like, man, this is brand new. It's probably not going to work. This is all for like legacy devices and old stuff and bringing things back to life. Well, if you have a ransomware attack and you just deployed all brand new devices, you got to do something. Well, guess what? There's a good chance ChromeOS Flex is going to work pretty well on your device. And with no testing whatsoever, other than the trackpad not working, and that's something the team could probably fix for this model pretty quickly, everything is up and running on this. Camera's working. Let me just test the speakers real quick. Let's go to Chrome Unboxed. Keyboard on this thing feels really nice. All right, and
have the
yeah, works.
Admittedly iterative update to
Not the greatest speakers in the world, but they work. That's
that device.
the whole point of all this stuff, is that like stuff just keeps working. Like, it's wild. And you know, I haven't tried this yet, but this is a convertible. It's a Yoga, and as I said earlier, they do not support, the ChromeOS Flex team does not support tablets at this moment. So at some point, they'll probably just have to flip the switch for tablet mode. But for right now, they're just not doing that. But I mean, if you put it into a presentation mode like this or something, like, the touchscreen still works. It's just those gestures to navigate around don't work anymore. So you stay with your mouse on screen, and you know, all your clicking can still work and do what you expect it to do. So again, you're not talking about 100% functionality across the board here. But if this was a device that you had just put out to your fleet and you needed it to still be working and you didn't have the funds to go replace it, you could slap ChromeOS Flex on here and be off and running. All right, so we've done weird, we've done work, we've done school, we've done modern. There's this one over here, though, that's super interesting. I mean, this thing is so lightweight. It almost doesn't feel like there's anything actually in here. I promise there is. We've tested it already. This is an N100 Windows box. I don't know. I would call this Chrome box. That's how I would refer to this thing. But basically, it's the newer, you know, N100 we see in some new Chromebooks. They're, gosh, wildly affordable. I'm pretty sure they're under $150. B-Link is the name of the company that makes this one. You got dual HDMIs and USBs and Ethernet and all that kind of stuff. Some USBs on the front, so it's well connected. Something simply you could buy and put in, you know, computer labs or libraries or something like that. But again, if you had it and it's running Windows and it's running Windows kind of poorly, you could swap it over to ChromeOS Flex. So we want to show you that running on this, but we need to get a monitor set up in here to do that. So we're going to break real quick and set all that up. All right, so we've got our Frankenstein set up here. We grabbed the first keyboard we could find up on the shelf, and it is a weird looking RGB kind of thing. And it brings up the point that with a box, the ChromeOS Flex team can obviously make sure the box is running well, and I can tell you that it is. The N100 in here works really well in Chromebooks, so it's not surprising that with that and 8 gigs of RAM, seem to handle the OS just fine. But if I bring a keyboard that's got a bunch of weird keys on it and stuff, like, there's no way they could test every single keyboard out there, and they can't verify that every keyboard will work with this the way that they can do with a specific device and a specific keyboard layout. But, you know, your basics work. The Windows key gets mapped to the launcher and all that kind of stuff. And where you need other shortcuts, you can go into ChromeOS Flex and just add those shortcuts for yourself. But the takeaway here is this is a cheap box that could be deployed at scale. You could drop ChromeOS Flex on it, add the peripherals that you want, and have a really nice workstation here that's easy to manage and easy to keep updated, and you don't really have to worry about, you know, ransomware and malware and all that other junk. So that's ChromeOS Flex in a nutshell, running on all sorts of different hardware, different form factors, all that kind of stuff. I hope this was helpful to you to actually see it working on all this different stuff. And if you're watching this and you're thinking like, this could be a really good fit for our organization, our business, remember, there is a link in the description. Go hit that link and you can learn more about how to get started with ChromeOS Flex and the management and all that stuff that goes along with it. And again, we hope that this video in general has been a bit educational for you, just to see all of this stuff on the table actually running ChromeOS Flex. It's been fun. It's been a really cool project to work on. And again, thanks to the ChromeOS Flex team for helping us get all of this stuff together. But guys, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, head down there, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to ring the notification icon as well if you'd like to be alerted when we make future videos, kinda sorta like this one. Until next time, we'll see you.